Hello and welcome to Rough Cut Film Review. I've got reviews coming of Looper and Cosmopolis, but what I want to do is review a film called Rec. It's a film I saw many years ago. I saw it again last night and on DVD. I got it in a supermarket that rhymes with Mazda for the pricely sum of £3. So I thought I'd just do a quick review because I think it's quite a significant film. So it's a 2007 Spanish subtitled horror film, but don't let that put you off. It's cut from a slightly different cloth, I think, to most mainstream Hollywood horror films, in that it's very bleak. There's very little in the way of stuff to cheer you up. The strapline on the DVD is "Trapped, no mercy, no escape, no one gets out alive." So before the film even begins, we get a pretty accurate picture of how the film is going to end up and how the characters are all going to end up. So the film is directed by JB. It's not actually his name, it's his initials, but I'm having a pretty torrid time trying to pronounce what his name actually is because he's Spanish and I'm a little bit embarrassed. So I'm going to stick with JB. So JB is a director of surprisingly little known, actually. He made a very ho-hum horror film, bizarrely starring Callista Flockhart, in about 2005. He made Rec 2, which was of dubious quality, and pretty much there's very little else of note there on his CV. So Rec is a found footage film. Lots of people credit found footage films with the Blair Witch Project, which obviously made umpteen money. However, it goes all the way back to sort of Cannibal Holocaust, where that technique, where the characters are supposed to be filming the events of the film. The good thing about this technique, if you've got a low budget, is obviously it's cheap, but also it very much, depending what sort of film you use in there, it very much gives you a claustrophobic feeling as you're watching it, and it's quite easy to get jumps and scares there, just from a sort of director's point of view. So obviously there have been lots and lots of low budget candid camera films. So anyway, so in terms of similarities, it's probably better with Rec to look forward and see what came after it than what came before. So obviously there's the Blair Witch Project before, but then even if you look at films like The Raid, and a year after Rec came out, Cloverfield came out, which it's too close there. I think that's more of a coincidence than anything else. But the two films are actually fairly similar, except that Cloverfield's probably got 20 times the budget that Rec had, although it did do all that CGI monster stuff, which actually was pretty good. So okay, so Rec, anyway, back on track. So plot wise, it's fairly contrived. There's a camera team of two. There's an attractive lady and good old Pablo, who is the cameraman. We only ever get to see his shoes. They are working on a fictional program called While You Sleep, and that week they are following around the night shift of a Barcelona fire crew. They get the fire crew gets a call from an elderly woman who's stuck in her apartment, in a big apartment block. They all turn up there with the camera crew in tow, who are filming everything. The elderly woman is feeling a little bit under the weather, should we say, and from that point on, stuff descends into people running around, the camera running around. It's very dark with bad stuff happening. It's pretty gruesome, and what the film does really well is capture that sense of escalation and of sort of hopelessness, and the bad stuff gets very much out of control very quickly, and it's very interestingly done. Probably actually the biggest laugh you'll have watching this film is there's the survivors, and with the candid cameras with them, and they'll run down to the lobby, and then there'll be bad stuff, and they go "Wah!" and then they'll all run back upstairs, and there'll be bad stuff, and they go "Wah!" and then they'll run back to the laundry room, and there'll be bad stuff, and they'll go "Wah!" and that's probably actually the biggest chuckle you'll have in the film, is just sort of the sort of shock of bad stuff. So in terms of what's in there, so there's bit of a spoiler alert, there's stuff about the Catholic Church and the Vatican here that makes me think of Spain's past of the Inquisition and all the generally terrible things of terrible people being put in positions of authority. The film's also set in Barcelona, which I imagine is not an accident. So that gave me thoughts of, a subtext about Catalonia and its relationship with Madrid and Spain in general. But I did a very quick Google search of that, of my little idea of Catalonia, and Google didn't seem to agree with me, but I still think that's probably in there. So it's a well-crafted, cheap little horror film. It's largely very well acted, and you could make the argument that 2007, we'd have seen so many of these found footage films that it doesn't have a reason to exist. I don't actually agree with this. I think it's interesting enough and good enough to stand in its own right. And I'm surprised. Well, actually, doing my little bit of research for this review, I saw that Rec 3 is going to be made, and Rec 2 was a little bit all over the place. So, and Rec 3 has actually got sort of Hollywood behind it a little bit more. So, and I thought it was a bit of a shame, really, because the director has done very little other than Rec of note, and it's just such a shame that Rec is a good film. Rec 2 is less good, so I thought, well, rather than the diminishing returns, I know there's money in it, but rather than just the diminishing returns of remaking Rec, and turning everything up to 11 and then doing it again, it's just such a shame that he couldn't find another good project to do, because he's obviously a pretty good director. So I think it's just frustrating that he couldn't just move on to something else. And just make another good little low budget film and work his way up. But there we are. Anyway, so Rec, you can get it super cheap on DVD. I'm sure Blockbusters have it. I'm sure everyone has it, and it's a great little horror film. Thanks very much.